The opinions and suggestions expressed on the following program are solely those of the participants and not necessarily endorsed by program sponsors or any radio station, media company, or platform broadcasting this program. The following program is a product of Causeway, LLC. The information in this broadcast is not intended as investment, tax, or financial advice. Matthew Moore is not a licensed investment advisor and speaks solely from his experience and opinions. All information in this broadcast is for entertainment or educational purposes only. Matthew Moore, Causeway, LLC, and the company or platform broadcasting this program is not responsible for the success or failure of any person's investment decisions or purchases. Matthew Moore, Causeway, LLC, and the company or platform broadcasting this program makes no and expressly disclaims all representations, warranties, and guarantees with respect to this broadcast and its sponsors. Investing in any market is inherently risky and can be financially dangerous. Invest at your own risk.
Government officials insist we will continue to keep you informed as this story unfolds.
Welcome to Cryptocurrency with Matthew J. Moore, the Bitcoin-focused radio show that's waking the masses to the fiat money Ponzi scheme. Money is changing, and your freedom is at stake. So stick around and learn how to empower yourself for this new digital age. Now, here's your host, Matthew J. Moore.
Welcome, America, and welcome, planet Earth. That's right. Are you a citizen of Earth? Well, you're listening to the right show at the right time. No matter where you are or who you are, I don't care. I want to welcome every single one of you. Bitcoin lover, maybe you're a newbie, maybe you're an expert. Well, hey, guess what? You're listening to Cryptocurrency with Matthew J. Moore, one of the only syndicated radio shows dedicated to the topic of Bitcoin, a show where you're going to learn about topics like liberty, money, history, technology, energy. I mean, there's so much that goes into this space and this idea around Bitcoin, and that's why we do this show. We want to educate. But one of the biggest challenges with Bitcoin is education. And that's why I was motivated to do this show. It's one of the reasons that, people are wondering what is money? What is Bitcoin? How does it fit into this picture? What are governments going to do? These are all questions that people have when it comes to this topic. But to understand Bitcoin, you often have to have a reasonable knowledge in topics like technology, politics, history, economics, and money, and the list goes on and on. But, despite the fact that there's a lot that goes into this, it can sometimes take hundreds of hours of study. And that's kind of what I've done. And that's what many people I know who are in this space have done. But what should the overall strategy be moving forward if I, myself, and others want to continue the education for Bitcoin? How do we continue to win over these newbies? Maybe you're a newbie. Maybe you're tuning in for the first time. Well, you're in for a real treat because we're here to figure out how do we help others have their orange pill moment. And if you don't know what an orange pill is, it's kind of like that, you ever seen the movie The Matrix, the red and the blue pill? Well, this time it's an orange pill, and it's going to open up your eyes to a world of truth. Truth in so many areas, and one person who has managed to do this, hand out a bunch of these orange pills, is Alladan Flinn. He's the creator of a Bitcoin trading card collection. You might be surprised to hear how this project is providing a nostalgic way of learning about Bitcoin. In fact, it's kind of a fun way to learn about Bitcoin. And although my co-host and my producer are not here today, I wanted to create this show, create this episode, because you need to hear exactly what this guy is doing. I promise you won't be disappointed. I want you to keep that radio dialed. And in fact, maybe you even collected baseball cards or even Pokemon cards. Who knows? Like, cards have always been kind of a part of our life. And so we got a real treat for you. I do need to make a shout out to SoonerMarketingSolutions.com before we continue this show. They've been so kind to let me record these shows in their studio and help me promote this show. So SoonerMarketingSolutions.com. If you got any marketing needs whatsoever, by all means, give them a shout out. And also, if you kind of like the really cool intros and outros to this show, go check out BeyondYouProductions.com. That's my producer's website. If you've got some kind of project that you want to mix or master, or maybe like create some music from scratch, this is the guy you got to go see. So that's BeyondYouProductions.com. All right, well, let's go ahead and bring in our guest today. He's much like us, he's taking a familiar format. I consider radio a familiar format, but he's taking a familiar format to help spread Bitcoin education. He's the founder and creator of Bitcoin trading cards. His name is Alladan Flinn, which I think is a super dope name. Alladan, welcome to America's Bitcoin-focused radio show. How are you doing today, my friend?
Doing great. Thank you very much for having me on, Matthew. I'm excited to be here and be able to tell this story.
Yeah, man. Well, I kind of wanted to start it here. I mean, your trading cards, I got to admit first, are absolutely beautiful. The art is amazing. They really stick out. But many might be thinking like, why create physical trading cards for something that is so digitally focused? I mean, can you share with us the inspiration behind this?
Yeah, so I mean, I grew up in the 80s and 90s, and it was just so much more of a simpler time. And as much as technology and the internet has given us a lot of amazing things, at the same time, it's taken away a lot of those feelings we had when we were younger, and takes a lot of the simplicity away. So I wanted to teach about something digital and bring it into a physical form to be able to kind of bridge that gap and give someone that nostalgic feeling back that they had when they were a kid. And I think that's a really way to spark people's interest, especially in something digital. And for like the boomer crowd,
Right.
digital is a scary thing, and it's hard to understand. So being able to teach them in something that they understand already, which I think the trading cards has been, like you said, over 100 years, it's been such an amazing, nostalgic, collectible piece of history. So putting it in that form, I think it just makes it feel a little easier, a little safer.
Yeah, no, I actually, I agree. I think it's a great educational tool. In fact, even though they're trading cards, they do have kind of this, flashcard element to them because they got the beautiful artwork on it. They got these really cool messages and ideas on the back of the cards. So it really is a great educational tool. But this kind of brings me to my next question, which is, do you feel that because Bitcoin is, it kind of often requires this firm understanding in topics like technology, history, money, politics, economics, kind of all those things I was talking about earlier, does this make it an uphill battle? I mean, how did you manage to navigate this yourself?
So for me personally, I was kind of born into it, with my background, and starting from a really young age. I started going down a rabbit hole in grade school because the school that I went to was pretty corrupt. A lot of tenure situations with some of the teachers because it was a smaller community and a smaller school. So they got away with things that most schools would never be able to get away with. And I questioned that at a really young age. Doesn't really matter how old you are. If you're doing something wrong, it's wrong. And it doesn't matter how long you've been in place. If it's wrong, it's wrong. And no one should have seniority to be able to do something unfair. So I've always kind of just been on this journey. And when I found Bitcoin, it just spoke to me like nothing else. The education that came along with it, it was a lot to take in. I was already kind of familiar with these topics and subjects, but like most people, talking about economics and government and all these different things, unless you work within that somehow with your job, or your life is connected to that somehow, these are not topics that most people really want to focus on. So me getting into Bitcoin brought me to those topics, but gave me a different way of looking at it. And it took the boring away and really made it exciting, mainly because those topics are really depressing for the most part when you really start finding out the facts of how all this works.
Right.
So have some hope in there with Bitcoin. I was incredibly driven to learn about all of these because now I've got hope. And with that hope, taking on all of those upsetting and disturbing topics is a lot easier to manage.
No, I agree. And I've noticed that the people who are often earlier to Bitcoin are people who do have kind of a more firmer grasp to, these topics like economics and politics and technology and money. And so it really is a beast to behold as far as, when you're trying to tackle or I guess, what's that saying? You eat an elephant one bite at a time. It's like eating an elephant. But in your trading cards, though, you do kind of make it pretty easy because you have these different categories that help kind of address the education dynamic. Can you speak to this?
Yeah, so In my experience, there's all different. I mean, everyone's different and everyone has different ideals and beliefs. And trying to hit somebody with some Bitcoin knowledge and keep it on one topic it's not going to work for everyone. So I've been doing Bitcoin consulting for the last few years. And a lot of that was to get feedback for this project. This has been a 4-year project building this out. And a lot of that was to collect as much feedback from the general public as possible, because that's the main point of these cards, is to make Bitcoin fun and easy for the general public to start learning about Bitcoin. So a big part of the feedback I got was there's certain people that grabbed on for the number go up. Some people were on because of the broken monetary system. A big one was freedom. I mean, the only reason my dad really jumped in, he wasn't worried about number go up. He was interested in the freedom aspect. And that's what finally made him start dollar cost averaging in, was really just the fact that this is, in a way, a donation, if there's any good donation that you could ever do towards all of humanity with Bitcoin. And the more of us that get involved, it's not about turning your savings into something much bigger necessarily. That's a bonus. But the most important part is having the chance for humanity to be their own bank for the first time. So having these categories in there was so important to give different topics for people to possibly get involved on and possibly spark their interest. I think that having economics is kind of scary for a lot of people, but there's some people that are really interested in that part. And not being overly Bitcoin was really important, because I think the why Bitcoin is a lot more important to get people started than how Bitcoin works, because they automatically assume, because Bitcoin is so technical and it's digital, that the learning curve is going to be too much for them. But if you can just spark their interest enough with one of these other categories, I think they'll take the time to start to dabble into why we're so fired up about Bitcoin and why it has the potential to fix the category that inspired them to get involved.
I agree. I mean, that one of the reasons why I picked up on it so fast was I was already kind of a gold and silver bug. I kind of had this, core understanding of what money really is. And so, depending on in the beginning you had the cypherpunks and, a bunch of computer nerds who really understood the technical side of things. So it is fascinating. But how has the general response been for your trading cards? Give us some insight on what both Bitcoiners are saying and what people who are completely new to Bitcoin are saying. Like, is there a vast difference of response?
Well, there's a major difference in response, and then there's some that correlate together pretty well. I think for the Bitcoin community, once you get in there and you really get involved, it's a bubble, and it's not a bubble in a bad way. It's our own little circle that is inviting to anybody. But most people that really get into Bitcoin, it's because we've dabbled down a rabbit hole, and in our everyday life, there's not a whole lot of people that want to dabble down that rabbit hole. So it's a very lonely feeling sometimes being in Bitcoin. Being able to go to Bitcoin meetups and meet other Bitcoiners is really special and nice, because you don't feel alone. But it can be depressing at times, just for the fact that we're constantly, why are we into Bitcoin? Because so many things are broken, and we feel like Bitcoin is the chance to possibly, if not fix some of these things, at the very least be a hedge against these things. So bringing something fun to the Bitcoin community, I think, has been one of the biggest wins with this. A lot of Bitcoiners are collectors. We stack stats. We've got the correct time preference. So collecting these items, if not for a monetary return down the road or just our own intrinsic value of it, is really important to us. They've been just really fun. And the community that's building behind it is a really fun, amazing community. It's just been wonderful, the reception that we're getting. And when it comes to the general public, it's amazing. It's really simple. All the way from setting up my website and dealing with tech support, and they're looking at my website as they're helping me fix different things, and they're going, "Oh my God, this is a really cool idea." And this is a simple way for me to learn, to the secretary that sits at the front desk at the business suites that I'm in, giving her a pack. She's like, "I know nothing about Bitcoin." And I said, "Well, this pack is just a really simple way to start like learning little topics. Like you said, it's like flashcards in a way, just simplifies it. She loved it. And 20 minutes later, she calls me up and I'm like, oh, did I do something wrong? And she just wanted to ask a bunch of questions about Bitcoin and the cards and different things. And she was fired up. And this is an older lady that really didn't ever care about Bitcoin one little bit. And now she's really interested. And with the kids, even more so. My kids have been listening to me talk about Bitcoin forever. It's information overload. They saw me working on the cards for years. Obviously, they loved the artwork part. But once the cards showed up and they were physical and they could rip a pack open and kind of go for that special card, they were hooked. And after many years of them being like, oh God, Dad's talking about Bitcoin again, I finally got fired up to start actually responding to some of these conversations because of the tidbits they're getting in these cards. And I think it makes them feel not just important, but part of the conversation where they can spit off some of these topics, and it empowers them to be able to maybe listen in on one of the spaces on Twitter that we're talking and know what these people are talking about. So
right.
It's just been wonderful so far.
Well, I love that little phrase. I don't know if you came up with it or somebody else came up with it, but stacking sats and collecting packs. I mean, that kind of rhymes because, you're collecting the cards. And then if you're listening to the show and you're new to Bitcoin, stacking sats refers to stacking Satoshis, which is a smaller division or classification of Bitcoin because Bitcoin is highly divisible by 8 decimal points. But Alladan, we've got probably 2 minutes before we got to go to break here, but I do want to ask you, you've got some really big Bitcoin influencers who are, participating in this card collection. You actually made dedicated cards to them. Was that an idea that just kind of, came to you, or did you have one of the influencers come to you and say, hey man, make me a card?
No, that was a big part of what I wanted to do originally. What are baseball cards that we collect? It's to get that special player that we're looking for, the MVP, or just from a player from our favorite team. So having those influence in there, I think it's really important for people that, you can call it fanboys or whatever it might be, but they just really like that influencer. And now they have a chance to collect a card from that influencer. But more importantly, it's when it gets to the general public. Most influencers nowadays are shilling crap and giving horrible advice and trying to give you financial advice that will just destroy you. Where the Bitcoiner influencers, they're not giving you financial advice. They're just trying to educate you. So it's really being able to give the newbies a starting off point of, hey, if you check out this influencer, we've vetted them. I've been in the space for many years. I know this guy or gal is not out to give you financial advice or send you down the wrong track. They're specifically here to empower you and hopefully give you some proper education to, especially in my opinion, keep you on the Bitcoin track and not send you down the road of all those other scams that are out there. Well,
we got 45 seconds before we got to go to break, but just tell people if they want to take a look at this artwork. I know we're going to talk about this later, but tell people where they can go if they want to check out this amazing art.
So btc-cards.com is the best place to check it out right now. It's a basic website as of now, but we have been working with Bitcoiners that are building an amazing site. So hopefully in the next week, maybe 2 at the most, everything will be laid out and absolutely gorgeous for you. So if you don't see it all right now, don't worry. In about a week or 2, it's going to be amazing and it'll all be there.
I love it. I love it. Well, and if you're listening to this show on the radio, call up a friend, tell them to tune in because we got a lot more content to cover. We got a lot more juice to squeeze out of this show. And Alladan, I'm telling you, this is a phenomenal project. You don't want to miss it. Stay tuned because we're going to cover a whole lot more about these special trading cards. We'll be right back. Stay put. Do you enjoy listening to my radio show, Cryptocurrency with Matthew J. Moore? Have you ever thought about being featured on the show as a loyal listener? What about winning some free Bitcoin? Can't go wrong with that, am I right? Well, today is your lucky day, my friend, because we're building a community for this show. For just $15 a month, you can become a member of the radio show. And in return, you'll have the chance to win $100 of free Bitcoin and be featured on the show. Every month, we will randomly draw one name from the pool of currently paid members, and that person will receive $100 of free Bitcoin and the opportunity to be featured during a segment of the show. We will do this drawing every single month. In addition, everyone who signs up as a member today will receive a complimentary copy of the Little Bitcoin Book, a great educational read around the fundamentals of Bitcoin. Join today before we close membership enrollment. Go to mattjmoore.com/member. Again, that's mattjmoore.com/member. Do you have a strategy to obtain Bitcoin on a regular basis? Do you plan to automate your dollar cost averaging? What about getting all or part of your paycheck in Bitcoin? GetHedge.io is revolutionizing how you get paid. Hedge makes it easy to automatically convert your pay into Bitcoin. Whether you're an employer or employee, you can get started in 4 easy steps. Start getting paid in Bitcoin, Ethereum, or Litecoin. The great part about using Hedge is you can skip the exchange experience altogether and have your Bitcoin sent directly to a wallet you control. Self-custody is key, and GetHedge is giving you the power. Hedge is here to make it easy to stack those sats month after month. Bitcoin, it's a long-term play, so what are you waiting for? Start living on the Hedge, and don't forget to let them know that you heard about Hedge from Cryptocurrency with Matthew J. Moore. Use my referral link at mattjmoore.com, or you can go to gethedge.io. Again, that's gethedge.io.
Short-form video content is taking over social media, and with only seconds to capture someone's attention, our team can help you stand out from the crowd. At Sooner Marketing Solutions, we'll produce and publish engaging TikToks, Instagram Reels, and YouTube Shorts. If you feel like you're falling to the wayside and missing out on the exposure that you deserve, click the link in the description to get Sooner results now.
The sun, beaches, parties, education, and Bitcoin. This is the recipe for Bitcoin 2023, the largest Bitcoin conference in the world. Ever thought about meeting industry experts? It's the who's who of Bitcoin, and you can't miss it. Join us in Miami, Florida for the annual Bitcoin conference. Use my promo code BTC Radio at checkout. That's BTC Radio. Learn more at mattjmoore.com. Welcome back, America. You know what? It's round 2, and you're in the right spot. You couldn't ask for a better radio show, I promise you. And that's because this is America's Bitcoin-focused radio show. Whether you're a Bitcoin lover, newbie, or expert, we've got a little bit of something for all of you. So I hope you stick around. And again, my name is Matthew J. Moore, and this is Cryptocurrency with Matthew J. Moore. It's one of the only syndicated radio shows in the country that is dedicated to the topic of Bitcoin. It's a show where you're going to learn about things like money, liberty, history, technology. I mean, the amount of topics that we cover is insane. And so I just hope that you would tune in every week. Hey, and if you miss a show, you can always find us on all the major podcast platforms. But on today's show, we've been chatting about a fun and simple way to learn about Bitcoin. And the truth is, Bitcoin, it can be hard for people to wrap their mind around, but luckily there are projects out there that are providing a nostalgic method to learn about Bitcoin. And what is that method, you might ask? Well, trading cards, I'm sure you collected trading cards when you were a kid, whether it was baseball, basketball, football, or some other kind of card. And, if you're somewhat younger, maybe even Pokemon cards, who knows? But, the art on some of these trading cards that we're talking about today, these Bitcoin trading cards, they are absolutely stunning, and they're loaded with awesome education. And today, I am going to go ahead and bring on our guest. He's currently on the line with us. His name is Alladan Flinn, and he is the founder of this project. And I'm going to let him do more speaking. But Alladan, are you there? Are you there on the line with us still?
I'm here.
Awesome, man. Well, it is so good to have you on the show today. When I saw your cards and I saw the artwork, in fact, it was Adam Meister who basically gave me a pack of the trading cards when he was coming through town, and I was highly impressed. And so I wanted to kind of kick it back up with this question. I noticed on your trading cards, it has kind of this quote on one of them, and it was a card that I got in a pack. I think it was a gold card. Basically, it says that gold is the money of kings, silver is the money of gentlemen, and barter is the money of peasants, but debt is the money of slaves. And I thought that was absolutely on point, because we have discussed on this show specifically that our current money is all debt-based. So if you live in this fiat money system, this dollar system, then you are essentially a slave. And I'm not trying to make that offensive, but it's the truth. We're technically peasants if we're going to go by that quote. So if gold is the money of kings, is Bitcoin the money of plebs? I mean, how would you classify Bitcoin?
I'd classify Bitcoin as the money of freedom. With Bitcoin comes personal responsibility, and it teaches you how to be your own bank. And this is the first time in history that we've, as the human race, had the ability for anybody to be their own bank. For centuries, we had those same kings making all the decisions for us, where Bitcoin has the potential to put the power back in the hands of the people.
No, I think that's great. And another erosion to point out is essentially art and architecture. I mean, if you look at the types of buildings and art that were maybe designed back when we had sound money, they tend to be kind of like a higher quality. They last much longer. Do you believe that there is any correlation here when it comes to fiat money and sound money? I mean, because it's clear that we don't build stuff like they used to. I mean, I go downtown in my city here in Tulsa, and I see this beautiful Art Deco buildings built with, these giant steel structures along with marble and granite. And it's just like, it's like if a tornado came through town, nothing would blow that building over. What's your thoughts on this? Is this all related to fiat money?
I think so. I mean, one of my favorite quotes is hard times create strong men, easy times create weak men. And with fiat, we have the ability to create credit, and that credit makes things a lot easier for people because they don't have to work as hard to get that, what we don't have anymore other than Bitcoin or gold, money. So by making things so easy with credit, it's to put it that way, it's making weak men or women or whatever you want to call it. And with that comes the lack of really amazing creations because it's just too easy and you don't have to spend that same amount of time. That can be the same with artwork. They've got AI generated artwork now, and some of that artwork is just absolutely ridiculous, and you can do it with a couple prompts on your computer. So right. I think we're in the age of where everything is just so easy. They don't have to put in that same effort to create something amazing.
Yeah, no, I mean, as crazy as it is to think that our world is getting more and more digitized and that things are getting smarter and smarter, it's almost like in some ways the analog method of doing things is going to be not only nostalgic but quite unique and special, because even let's just hypothetically say that AI is able to produce better quality artwork depending on whose opinion that is. The simple fact that a human being took the time and effort to produce something that is unique and special, I think is could be something very interesting to think about in the future. But Alladan, on your packaging, you have the phrase to inspire and unlock the potential in everyone to achieve greater financial freedom and individual liberty, highlighting the power of Bitcoin and decentralization. I love the fact that that's on your packaging on the cards. Talk to us about that. Is this kind of your mission? Is this what this is all about? Is it freedom?
Yeah, I'd say so. That's my biggest push. It doesn't matter how much money you have, how big your house is, or any of those elements if you don't have freedom. So if we can't, as a culture, embrace that freedom, then everything else we're working for, in my opinion, doesn't really matter. So having that as a category, but having that as a main focus on these cards is probably the most important to me, at least. And I think a lot of that just has to do with my kids and giving them a chance to have a world to grow up in where they've got their own freedoms and their kids can have the same thing. I think we were blessed and a little bit spoiled, even though the freedoms, I mean, it's a heck of an argument whether we had the same amount of freedoms younger, but I mean, compared to today, yeah, in the 80s, 90s, even early 2000s, our freedom level was massively bigger than it is right now. So I think finding a way to have people understand the importance of freedom is probably the most important of any aspect. Before a currency, before your savings account, before anything, they need to put freedom first.
Right. I would say, I mean, I would argue that everybody today tends to be in this rat race where they're working to build a better prison cell, and so here we are talking about freedom, we're talking about Bitcoin, and we're trying to, hey, take that orange pill, get out of that nice fancy cell because you're still locked up, you're still a peasant. All right, well, let's move on to the next question here. The cards, again, they're beautiful. Do you have plans of creating like an actual card game out of any of this?
So with the trading cards we're doing right now, we do have some ideas. We are gamifying it where we'll have a reward system set up, but we're going to build that around the ethos of Bitcoin. So the same way Bitcoin teaches things like peer-to-peer transactions, proper time preference, different things like that. We're finding a way in a reward system to be able to really push that through the cards and not make it so much of a playable game as a teachable game, where through these rewards, you'll be learning these different aspects of what makes Bitcoin so amazing. But for the game, we are working on a side project called Satoshi's Heroes. And this is for a younger audience for the most part, even though I'm sure there's going to be a lot of Bitcoiners of all ages that love it. But yeah, coming up with a game for that is definitely in the works right now so that it can be playable and educational at the same time. Just geared a little bit more towards getting the younger generation interested and involved.
That's a brilliant idea, and I think it'll probably be a very smart move. And one thing that I personally wanted to ask you, because I was highly interested in this, is with all of the wonderful artwork on these cards. And by the way, before I kind of dive into this, remind people one more time, where can they go if they want to check out this amazing art?
So btc-cards.com. The algorithm isn't quite great yet, but if you just type in Bitcoin trading cards, one way or another, it'll lead you to one of our sites, either the website or the Twitter handle or anything like that. So btc-cards.com.
And ladies and gentlemen, the reason why I'm having him say that again is because, again, you're not going to be disappointed with his artwork. And I am curious, are there large format prints for sale as far as the art? I mean, it might be kind of fun. I got some blank space on my walls here. It might be fun to get some of that.
Yeah, so we're definitely working on that. And I'd say we're about 2 weeks out from having that on the new website as well. You'll be able to find that. And the reason why it's taken so long is we're doing fine print museum quality. So it's definitely not going to be your random canvas prints. We're going all out because the artwork is so detailed and there's so much to it with the colors. And me being an artist, I want it to be the best of the best. So that is coming. And each one of the prints that we end up doing, they will be limited edition. So we'll only do 100 of each print ever produced. And they'll all come with a certificate of authenticity. We're trying to sign each print and the certificate on the blockchain, the Bitcoin blockchain, so that you can guarantee the authenticity of it, and definitely have some amazing things in the work for that.
So talk to me a little bit about the rarity of these cards. I mean, you talked about how there's these Bitcoin influencers and special key people. I mean, you've got some of the originals like Hal Finney and Satoshi Nakamoto, people who were kind of part of the early parts of Bitcoin's conception. Are these like the more rare cards? Like, how do you dictate which ones are rare and which ones not?
So all the rare cards are going to be foil cards.
Okay.
And the more rare the cards get, the more detailed the foil is, and the more work and time we put into that part. So you'll immediately be able to tell when you rip open a pack what are common cards and what is your rare card, because it'll be foil. And we put a rare card in every single pack just so that everyone could be a winner. Now, did you get a rare card that's one of 999, or did you get one of the one of ones? So there's still a lot of amazing collectability about it. We just thought it was really important to make sure that in one way or another, everyone is taking something great out of it, and we're not locking out anybody that can only afford to buy one pack.
That's really cool. That's amazing. Well, one of the things that Bitcoin often teaches us, besides special lessons in all of these subjects that we've been talking about, referring to politics, economics, and liberty and technology, the list goes on and on, yada, yada, yada. But the point is, there's always something new to learn in Bitcoin. But what has been the biggest lesson that the Bitcoin space has taught you?
I'd say that the community and how we do have, the best way to say it is hope.
Right.
It's something that is missing in many different elements of our life nowadays. I think hope is the biggest one, that it's taught me that there is hope out there, and there are a lot of amazing people working towards the betterment of humanity. And that's a beautiful thing with all of the bad news. I mean, turn off your TVs, because that's all they're really feeding you with. And once you find some hope in your life, everything just gets a little bit better. And when that bad news comes along, it's nowhere near as bad if that hope is strong enough.
Yeah, it's definitely a form of conditioning, and whether people know it or not. But if you've obviously been in the space for some time, you've kind of, drank the Kool-Aid in the good way, right? The orange pill. So it's my question to you is, how would you sum up Bitcoin culture, and how would you describe it to somebody? I mean, is it apolitical, or has or is the idea of freedom, the idea of freedom and liberty that Bitcoin often presents, has that been politicized now?
I think a little bit. The nice part is we're all pretty strongly united on the freedom fact in Bitcoin and how important that is. So I definitely, apolitical. I think most Bitcoiners, if they don't start out apolitical, they end up pretty apolitical. So that's a beautiful thing, because once you get down that rabbit hole, you find that neither side is really working in a separate office. Just do your own research on that, but there's a lot of correlations between it. And once you get to freedom, you understand that they're just tossing the ball back and forth on every 10 or 20 years. What was left is now right, and what was right is now left. Right. And I think that Bitcoin rabbit hole really starts to open up a lot of people's eyes on those facts. And then at that point, we start going after what is the most important, and it's about all of us. And it's the most amazing people I've ever met are left, and some of the most amazing people I've ever met are right. They just don't know that the battles they're being shoved into with the propaganda is a load of crap.
Yeah, no, it's a whole divide and conquer approach for sure. It's a bird with two separate wings, but it's the same bird. But let's talk about this. In your opinion, what are some of the biggest changes that you've seen over the last 2 years when it comes to Bitcoin? I mean, are we making progress? What's your analysis?
Yeah, so one of the biggest things I'm excited about is the Lightning Network. I think there's so much potential in that, and there was a lot of argument about Bitcoin becoming a currency instead of a store of value. And I love what the Lightning Network is doing. It's just allowing us to be able to transact with each other really simply. I have a friend in Africa, and I can send him a couple bucks in a matter of seconds and help him out. And I mean, in a lot of places, every dollar counts. We take that for granted in America, but one extra dollar to them, it means everything. And the time for that to come in is really important too. It may be Sunday night at 9:00, and your daughter's broken down on the side of the road somewhere. And if you have your wallet set up right and understand what you're doing, then you could literally send your daughter whatever she needed within seconds through the Lightning Network, and she could turn that into dollars through her debit card, credit card. There's many different things that are coming out right now, and she can get her tire fixed, get the gas in her car, whatever needs to happen, and get right back on the road. And we don't really have many things right now that can do what Lightning Network is doing. So that's one of the things I'm most excited about moving forward.
Yeah, no, I mean, Bitcoin is definitely the people's money, and that's why I get excited about it, and the possibilities and the liberation, and the fact that it's pulling people out of poverty in a very unique way, and also pulling people out of oppression. I mean, because there is such a thing as financial oppression, and no, we're not just talking about the big bad bankers, which that's definitely a part of it, but at the same time, though, I mean, just people are just so, unaware of how money works. And the simple fact that we can have this conversation and talk about, well, what is money? How does it work? And what is some money supposed to be? And what is a fair form of money? And I think what you're doing with the trading cards is absolutely wonderful. It's absolutely unique, because you're taking, like we were saying earlier, a very nostalgic way, a very simple way to show people how to, read and consume and educate themselves, because, you might hand somebody a book like the Bitcoin Standard and they might read it and they go, oh man, I'm totally lost already within the first 5 pages because there's so much, jargon in this. But your cards really do a great job of breaking down not only the culture and the ideas and the special language in the Bitcoin culture. We've got maybe a couple seconds before we got to go to break here, but was that kind of your intention with the cards, was to provide an easy way to, have people learn about these concepts and the culture?
100%. When people get in, they come to Twitter for the first time and they start hearing people talking another language, DCA, FOMO,
Right.
It's just so many acronyms that we use that they just automatically feel lost, and it's something as simple as an acronym. So having those broken down in the cards, and they're starting to learn the language of Bitcoiners, and I think that when they come in, they just feel more safe and comfortable, and they're part of the conversation that way. So yeah, that was my number one intention.
Yeah, it's bite-sized nuggets. Like I was saying earlier, how do you eat an elephant at a time, one bite at a time? And these trading cards are your spoon or fork, your one bite at a time. So I'd encourage you to get your hands on some, check out the artwork. It really is amazing. And we're going to dive a little bit more deeper in this. We got one more segment, so I don't want you to go anywhere. And if you're listening on the radio, well, call up a friend, tell them to tune in, because we got a lot to talk about. And hey, we're on every major podcast platform. If you missed the show, you can always check us out later. All right, we'll be right back. Don't go anywhere. We'll have a good time. The sun, beaches, parties, education, and Bitcoin. This is the recipe for Bitcoin 2023, the largest Bitcoin conference in the world. Ever thought about meeting industry experts? It's the who's who of Bitcoin, and you can't miss it. Join us in Miami, Florida for the annual Bitcoin conference. Use my promo code BTC Radio at checkout. That's BTC Radio. Learn more at mattjmoore.com. Do you enjoy listening to my radio show, Cryptocurrency with Matthew J. Moore? Have you ever thought about being featured on the show as a loyal listener? What about winning some free Bitcoin? Can't go wrong with that, am I right? Well, today is your lucky day, my friend, because we're building a community for this show. For just $15 a month, you can become a member of the radio show. And in return, you'll have the chance to win $100 of free Bitcoin and be featured on the show. Every month, we will randomly draw one name from the pool of currently paid members, and that person will receive $100 of free Bitcoin and the opportunity to be featured during a segment of the show. We will do this drawing every single month. In addition, everyone who signs up as a member today will receive a complimentary copy of the Little Bitcoin Book, a great educational read around the fundamentals of Bitcoin. Join today before we close membership enrollment. Go to mattjmoore.com/member. Again, that's mattjmoore.com/member. Do you have a strategy to obtain Bitcoin on a regular basis? Do you plan to automate your dollar cost averaging? What about getting all or part of your paycheck in Bitcoin? GetHedge.io is revolutionizing how you get paid. Hedge makes it easy to automatically convert your pay into Bitcoin. Whether you're an employer or employee, you can get started in 4 easy steps. Start getting paid in Bitcoin, Ethereum, or Litecoin. The great part about using Hedge is you can skip the exchange experience altogether and have your Bitcoin sent directly to a wallet you control. Self-custody is key, and GetHedge is giving you the power. Hedge is here to make it easy to stack those sats month after month. Bitcoin, it's a long-term play, so what are you waiting for? Start living on the Hedge, and don't forget to let them know that you heard about Hedge from Cryptocurrency with Matthew J. Moore. Use my referral link at mattjmoore.com, or you can go to gethedge.io. Again, that's gethedge.io.
Short-form video content is taking over social media, and with only seconds to capture someone's attention, our team can help you stand out from the crowd. At Sooner Marketing Solutions, we'll produce and publish engaging TikToks, Instagram Reels, and YouTube Shorts. If you feel like you're falling to the wayside and missing out on the exposure that you deserve, click the link in the description to get Sooner results now.
We are back, America. We are back, world, because, hey, no matter where you are, no matter what city you're in, it's round 3 of America's Bitcoin-focused radio show. And whether you're a Bitcoin lover, newbie, or expert, we've got a little bit of everything for you. We got the special secret sauce, So I hope you stick around because it's going to get tasty. Well, and I'm just going to say this because there are absolutely haters out there. There's people who don't believe in Bitcoin. And listen, we can't win over everybody, but I hope you would continue to listen to this show and maybe learn something. You know, if you don't want Bitcoin, you don't like Bitcoin, well, at least learn something about technology and history and liberty. You know, we got all sorts of lessons on this show. But like I was saying, you're listening to Cryptocurrency with Matthew J. Moore, and yes, we are one of the only syndicated radio shows dedicated to the topic of Bitcoin. A show, like I said, where we're going to talk about all these different topics. And on this episode, it's no exception. We've been chatting about education through Bitcoin. Get this, Bitcoin trading cards. And these aren't any ordinary cards. In fact, they are literally a visual euphoria for the eye. I mean, it's loaded with Bitcoin knowledge bombs, and I personally love this. I think it's a great way to learn about Bitcoin because it's very nugget, bite-sized pieces, and you can kind of go at your own rate. And plus, you got pretty pictures to look at. You know, I mean, I wasn't a big reader in elementary school, but I sure did love those pictures. But you know, this is a method that makes learning about Bitcoin just fun and simple. And, I want to go ahead and bring our guest back on for our final segment. He's currently on the line with us. His name is Alladan Flinn. He is the creator of these Bitcoin trading cards. But Alladan, how you doing? You ready to close out this show pretty strong?
Yeah, I love it. Yeah, you've been amazing.
Awesome, man. Well, I've loved the content. I've loved the conversation. You know, if I'm going to have you say this one more time because, you know, people might be jumping in their car right now and being like, Bitcoin trading cards, what do these look like? You know, if they're just now tuning in, where could they go to see this beautiful artwork?
So btc-cards.com. And if you're on Twitter, that's mainly where we're at the majority of the time. It's btc_cards.com or at Twitter. Sorry.
No, you're good. You're good. I love it. In fact, I encourage people to go there, you know, as soon as the show's over. But here's my question for you, Alladan. You know, I go to a lot of conferences. I go to a lot of events. You know, have you spent any time at Bitcoin events or conferences? And maybe, you know, here's another question. Are you going to be at Bitcoin 2023? Because I guarantee you that there's going to be tons of people who would love to get their hands on something like this.
Yeah, we definitely have plans to be at the Miami Bitcoin. Like you said, it's one of the biggest events we have in the world. And Bitcoin Magazine has done an amazing job getting lots of amazing information out to the Bitcoiners and general public. So we're definitely planning on having a booth there and showing up in as much style as possible and maybe even having a Series 2 out by then. So
you're actually going to have a booth in the trade hall?
Yes.
Well, heck, I need to come and see you guys when I'm there. I'm actually going to do some interviews. I'm bring my Roadcaster board with me and maybe do some live interviews from the conference. That'll be a lot of fun. So maybe we can pull you aside for one of those.
Oh, that'd be amazing.
Yeah. Well, let me ask you this. What's the future for your company? I mean, how do you see these Bitcoin trading cards evolving? Do you have any milestones that you want to accomplish?
Yeah, so coming out with multiple series is a really big one. For the collectors, so they know that this isn't a one-hit wonder. I think that's incredibly important. Stepping up our game with the artwork, with everything that we can do, just pushing the creativity as far as we possibly can is incredibly important to us. The kids series with the game is definitely going to be a big one. We're not dropping that in a big rush because we want to make sure that it's as amazing as possible, but that one's a huge part of our roadmap. Another thing that we're working on right now is getting out a box set where you have a lot of people that are going, I want the information. I like the idea that you can learn in little tidbits at a time, but I don't want to have to pay and collect card after card in order to get there because there's 10 cards in a pack and that may not get you there. So we're going to be offering a full box set of each of these cards so that you can get all of that information in one place and not have to worry about the collection. We know that there's a lot of collectors out there that love that, but then there's a lot of people that just want the education and they want the flashcard part of it and want to be able to maybe share it with friends and family or take it to the Bitcoin meetups and pass them around, but don't want to get their collectible cards hurt. So we're really excited to be able to drop that hopefully in the next month or two.
Very cool. Very cool. Well, I mentioned it earlier, and we're talking a lot about education, but there's also going to be those not early adopters. They're going to be the last adopters of things like Bitcoin. There's definitely going to be skeptics until the end. But what do you tell? I mean, what's your message to a skeptical person about Bitcoin? Would you have anything specific you would tell them today if they're listening?
Yeah. So the biggest thing to keep in mind if you're going, Bitcoin may not be for me. It may not, but it doesn't mean it's not a really good hedge for your children at the very least to know about. And it doesn't have to be a number go up. It comes down to being a little bit of a lifeboat. It's a hedge. So I think it's really important for parents that are saying this may not be for me, but to at least try and get your kids educated on it. It's the same thing as the internet boom. Any kids that aren't kids today, but if they would have started in graphic design or played around with anything internet related in the 90s, they would be in one amazing position job wise and career wise and everything else. So getting them involved just for that reason alone, I think is really important.
Yeah, no, I agree. And in fact, a lot of people will, kind of bury
getting them involved in that. My dad didn't get me involved in the internet because he didn't care about it one little bit. And I mean, that definitely hindered me moving forward because I missed a lot of that. And I had to start once the internet had taken on such a grasp that I had a lot of catching up to do. Well, right now, you're still early. Your kids are still early. It's not necessarily about the investment as much as it's about the education and knowing that this not only has potential for freedom for your children to give them one amazing opportunity, but it really gives them a hedge towards possibly a career move or just knowing about a new technology that has the potential to be bigger than the internet ever dreamed of.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I think, sometimes fear often plays a big role in why somebody doesn't want to look into something, and especially when it comes to technology. You have a lot of people out there that are afraid of things like artificial intelligence. They have people that are afraid of things like, Bitcoin, even though they don't have any reason to be afraid. I mean, they should actually be more afraid of central bank digital currencies. But my approach is whether you believe in it or not, it's better to learn about it, to know about it, actually do some homework. Don't just spend an hour reading a couple of mainstream articles. Really do your homework, dig, learn. And, money is such an important concept. It represents our time, labor, energy, and freedom. And if you don't go down that rabbit hole of understanding what money is, and hypothetically, if our money is compromised, well, we're technically slaves, and unknowingly too. And so, if the money is compromised, so is our freedom, so is our labor, so is our time. So if you're listening to this program and you are skeptical about this stuff, listen, you don't have to be a believer. You don't have to jump on the bandwagon. You don't have to drink that orange pill, but at least learn. Because then if you're learned and you're ready and you're prepared, you can better approach the world, kind of like what Alladan was saying as far as being ready for the future. But Alladan, we're almost out of time for the show. If people, again, if they're just now tuning in, or maybe they just a couple minutes ago, where can they go and check out these awesome educational Bitcoin trading cards?
So the best way to do it is to go to BTC cards.com. And again, if you miss that one, Bitcoin trading cards, and algorithm isn't quite all the way up there yet. We're getting there, but Bitcoin trading cards, and do a little digging and it'll be there. What about social media? You on Twitter? Can anybody follow you? Yeah, Twitter's the best place. I have a hard time with social media because I just don't like mainstream media very much, and that's a lot of what you get. But Twitter's got an amazing community in there of Bitcoiners. So BTC_cards at Twitter, and we're the most active there. So if you want to know anything, you want to reach out or anything like that, that's the best place to do it. Well, that actually concludes our show. I hope if you're listening to the show, you've enjoyed it, you've learned something, because this has been Cryptocurrency with Matthew J. Moore. Alladan, thank you so much for joining us. And until next time, my friends, we're going to see you next week. Same time, same place. Remember, Bitcoin is changing the world. Don't get left behind. We'll see you next time.